gentlemen, to JWF Monday Night Ignition. I'm your host, Silver Spoon, joined as always by the captain of all captains. It is Captain Tibbs.
And it's great to be here tonight, Sills. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Tibbs. And speaking of captains, tonight marks the beginning of the best Captain's Championship Tournament. You announced it last week live here on Monday Night Ignition that 8 of the best that the JWF have to offer are going to be facing off in an epic tournament to crown the brand new Captain's Champion.
Exactly, Sills. Now this title, it needs a man. It needs a man who can be the captain to hold it rightfully. And that's why, for our first matchup, I've got these two guys lined up.
That's right, two men who have held the Captain's Championship in the past and held it with pride. The Dylan, and a man who I know you're a big fan of, the Hammerman. I mean, let's not forget the Hammerman coming off with a huge victory last week over Blake Tanner. And I think the Hammerman, if he keeps that momentum up, he could become the brand new Captain's Champion. What do you think,
Yeah, he's
Tibbs?
gonna win it all, Sills. Win it all, Hammerman.
All right, and you can see him in the middle of the ring right now. The Dylan, the Hammerman surveying each other. Both of these men have such a storied history with one another. And they start off with a big lockup in the center of the ring. And thus begins another great chapter in this amazing rivalry between the Dylan and the Hammerman. Tibbs, let's not forget in the past, these two have had some great matches feuding over the Captain's Championship. Hell, at the end of the day, the Dylan actually ended up getting the Hammerman unmasked at one point. A great offense in the history of the Hammerman.
That's right, Sills. But the Hammerman, he put that mask on. He put his hammering boots on, and he's back, and he's better than he's ever been.
That's right, you got to think in the spirit of lucha. One of the biggest offenses you can do to an opponent is to get their mask removed. And that's why the Hammerman, you can see him already back in the Dylan, up to the rope, bouncing him off. Hammerman dropping down, leapfrogging. A beautiful heel kick sends the Dylan careening to the ground. And you can see that the Lord of the Smart Side himself, he looks pissed, Tibbs, at how quickly the Hammerman was able to get it down like that.
This is something that I'm pretty sure the Hammerman has been wanting to do to the Dylan for a long time.
That's right, now the Dylan rushing the Hammerman, taking him into the turnbuckle, and oh my God, just driving that shoulder straight into the ribs of the Hammerman. And you can see our referee Shibata being forced to call for the separation as Dylan continues to lay in those shots. Now Dylan finally relenting to the referee, backing up, but with a big slap to the face. And Tibbs, let me tell you, that lets the Hammerman know right now that the Dylan is not playing around today.
No, that's not for effect. That's to get right at the Hammerman. That's the Dylan showing that he's got the dominant momentum in this match right now, and he's giving it a little bit to the Hammerman.
That's right, you can see the Hammerman a little bit upset, trying to rush the Dylan, but Dylan quickly reverses into an arm drag, and you can see the Lord of the Smart Side himself, he is not letting go of that arm, he is maintaining control. And Tibbs, I gotta say, this gets me worried for the Hammerman. At the end of the day, the Hammerman does his best in the ring when he's able to utilize his speed, when he's able to utilize those quick kicks, and the Dylan has been very good so far in this match about keeping the Hammerman grounded, preventing him from building up any momentum, and if the Dylan keeps this up, the Hammerman might be out early in a big upset.
You don't see the Dylan going for more technical move styles like this usually. He's more of a beat-em-up kind of guy. I'm interested. Of course, that's what it's going to have to take to beat someone like the Hammerman.
That's right, you can see the Hammerman desperately trying to get back to his feet, getting those feet underneath him. Dylan continuing to put pressure on the arm, and you can see it right there. The weight of the Dylan, the size advantage coming into play as it was just too much, sending the Hammerman back down into the mat. You can see him writhing in pain, grabbing at that arm, and the Dylan taking advantage, smelling blood in the water, turning things over into an arm bar, looking for the submission attempt, and you can see the Hammerman is struggling right now, Tibbs.
No, I'd never imagined the Hammerman to be somebody to tap out, but the Dylan surprising with this highly technical style he's bringing to this match.
That's right, now the Hammerman, though, quickly thinking on his feet, rolling through, pinning Dylan to the mat. 1, 2, and Dylan being forced to release the arm before the Hammerman could get the 3 count, and you can see the D looking frustrated, but it sends him straight into a big hammer boot, leveling the man known as the D. And you can see the Hammerman with almost a look of relief on his face as he finally manages to take down the Dylan. But let me tell you something, I don't think the Hammerman can rest on his laurels too quickly right now, Tibbs.
Not at all, Sills. The Hammerman might have the momentum back. He might have got a big shot in, but he's got a lot of ground to make up that the Dylan's ahead of him with.
That's right, and now the Hammerman, like I said earlier, taking advantage of that high-flying style he is known for, going to the top rope and calling for the Dylan to get to his feet. And things do not seem to be looking good for the D as the Hammerman delivers a beautiful crossbody, but oh my God, Tibbs! The Dylan rolling through, getting his legs underneath him, and he's picking up the Hammerman straight off the ground. Look at the strength of the D, look at the core strength.
This is a new kind of Dylan that we're seeing. He's mastered several different types of wrestling. He's a big, heavy guy. He can lift a lot. And I'm amazed that he can just catch the Hammerman out of midair like that.
That's right, and he has popped the Hammerman up onto his shoulders, and Tibbs, we can already tell what he is going for, a little total destruction, that vicious neck breaker, but it looks like the Dylan is not done bouncing off the ropes, and he hits the D-trigger! The D-trigger, that vicious running knee straight to the skull of the Hammerman. Dylan just falls into the pinfall. 1, 2, 3, and just like that, ladies and gentlemen, we know who's going to be moving forward to the semifinals next week. It is that man, the Lord of the Smart Side, the Dylan, a man who, I'll be honest, I had picked for the finals from the beginning, Tibbs.
I have a severe sadness in my heart, Sills, that the Hammerman lost, but the Dylan definitely deserved it.
That's right, the Hammerman, you can see he was a little bit off of his game. In recent weeks, he's been feuding with Blake Tanner back and forth. You can see him kind of looking over his shoulders. And Tibbs, I'll be honest, the Hammerman really didn't seem to have his head in the game tonight.
No, Sills, it's almost like he's been put on edge by the recent streak of Blake Tanner just going off the rails and going, I'll be honest, Sills, completely insane.
That's right, and speaking of Blake Tanner, I mean, in order to find out who the Dylan's going to be facing next week on JWF Monday Night Edition, we will find out in the main event as Blake Tanner takes on a man who's debuting in the company, Hollywood Hulcher. And Tibbs, let me tell you something, the history between Blake Tanner and Hollywood Hulcher is long, it is storied, and I think that this is going to be a big match feel tonight.
I agree, Sills. It's been a long time since anybody's heard anything from Hollywood Hulcher. He's been off doing his own thing. He's been off trying to get into Hollywood, get into movies, TV shows, whatever. But he's finally back in the wrestling business, and he decided to come back to the JWF.
That's right, and I'm actually hearing backstage we have sent one of our top interviewers to interview the Hammerman after that devastating loss because, Tibbs, I'll be honest, I want to know what's going through the head of the Hammerman after it seemed he was out of the game throughout that whole match. Let's have a listen. Ladies and gentlemen, Don McDonald backstage here with the Hammerman. Now, Hammer, after your devastating loss to the Dylan just now, I gotta know, as a former JWF Captain's Champion, I know this tournament had to be important to you. I mean, many people, they had you going all the way. How does it feel to be out in round one in this disappointing result? Look, McDonald, it's just... It's been a confusing few months for the Hammerman here, okay? My family's been busy with the tag division. I feel like I've been trying to get Blake Tanner off my back for months, and now I feel like I've lost focus. You know, I feel like I've lost sight of what's truly important to me in this company, and I guess I was hoping that the title, that this tournament was going to be enough to set me back on the right track, and somehow I still managed to come up that little bit short this week. But you know what? You know what I'm going to say to all my Hammer maniacs out there? The Hammerman will be back next week, and the Hammerman's going to do what he does best, and that's drop the hammer on each and every... I'm sorry, what exactly are you doing here? You see I've got this interview going on. Have you got a problem with me or something, kid? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like we've been joined by the rising sun himself, FOMO-san. It looks like FOMO's got some words for the Hammerman. Stop lying to yourself, Hammerman. Stop lying to the JWF universe. You see, you're trying to convince everyone that the only reason for your failure is your mind. that you don't have your head in the proverbial game, but if we just keep giving you chance after chance, you'll prove yourself, right? That's what you keep saying, but I don't believe it. Just like I know you don't believe it, because the truth is, you've been placed at the top of the mountain for months, and you can't handle the pressure. Everyone speaks with such excitement when the Hammerman walks out to the ring, and it terrifies you to have all of that attention placed on you while you're failing every step of the way. You see, if it wasn't for Hollywood, Hulcher, you would have failed to get the victory last week, just like you failed to get it at WrestlePalooza, like you failed to win the Regal Rumble after months of proclaiming that you would be the one to defeat those 29 other men. Because Hammerman, you are not the Hammerman of the past. You are not the conquering hero. You're not the vicious, unleashed beast you once were. No, now you are terrified. You're scared. You're afraid of the entire JWF universe turning its back on you. And I'm going to prove to that universe itself that this mask isn't the only thing you're hiding behind, Hammerman. Well, Tibbs, what in the world is FOMO-san getting at? I mean, I understand that Hammerman's been on a bit of a losing streak lately, but, what kind of man just interrupts an interview like that?
I don't know, Sills. I haven't gotten a real read on that rising sun FOMO-san lately, but he seems, as much as I hate to say it, he might have a point. The Hammerman, he's been so off. He just doesn't seem the same.
That's right. I mean, when the Hammerman debuted in this company, he was probably one of the most vicious competitors we had, utilizing that big hammer boot, knocking the block off of everybody who comes his way. But now it almost seems like he's more playing to the audience, that he wants to use those high-flying maneuvers and he wants to focus on entertaining the universe more than actually getting the match done. And while you and I, as people creating this show, we'd love to see that, at the end of the day, it is also hurting the Hammerman in the ring.
That's right, Sills. If there's one thing this show is about at its heart, it is pure competition. And as much as we want to see the people entertained every night here on Monday Night Ignition, you still gotta worry about putting yourself ahead in the ring. We do have a wins and losses system now, so that's gonna be more important than ever.
That's right, Tibbs. And speaking of a man who certainly thought about winning being the most important thing, I want to talk about this man coming out to the ring right now, Scottye Moore, a man who at WrestlePalooza interfered in the main event utilizing his cash-in-the-bag briefcase, inserted it himself in, made the match a triple threat, and let's be honest, that match was never about the title. That match was always about Mamoa Curry finally defeating the Leviathan, and Scottye Moore at the last minute inserted himself in, pinned Mamoa Curry, and basically got away with the heist of the century, Tibbs.
Absolutely, Sills. It was a horrifying thing to watch, knowing everything that Mamoa Curry had put into that. After all of the vicious, grueling matches, saving the world multiple times from the influence of his brother, the Leviathan, he was getting ready to try to do it one last time on the greatest stage we have to offer. And then Scottye Moore comes in with his cash-in-the-bag briefcase, ruins the moment, ruins Mamoa Curry's final and only chance he had left. Takes the championship, takes his brother away, and now Mamoa Curry has nothing.
That's right, Tibbs. I mean, last week, Mamoa Curry made it clear that seeing a mortal, seeing a normal human like Scottye Moore being able to best him, to be able to best the Leviathan, it hurt Mamoa Curry more than any loss ever has in the past. And that is why Mamoa Curry says that he's coming for Scottye Moore. He's coming for that title. And Scotty's in our ring right now, and I think he's got to respond to Mamoa Curry's words from last week. Let's have a listen. So last week, Mamoa Curry did what he does best. Mamoa Curry couldn't keep his damned mouth shut. You see, all you had to do last week, Mamoa, was be a man. Walk up to that interviewer and simply say the truth. The truth that at WrestlePalooza, Scottye Moore saved the world. That's all you had to do. But no. Instead, the utmost holy one himself, the so-called god of the JWF, did what he always has to do. And that's build his own narrative. That's to tell his own story, to tell the JWF universe that what I did at WrestlePalooza was nothing but the ultimate in opportunism. Well, how about this? Let me ask you this, Mamoa. What would have happened if I didn't come out there, huh? What would have happened if I had let your broken and bloodied body keep going? You really think that you would have had the strength to keep getting back up? You really think your godly attitude was enough to take him down? You see, the sad thing is, Mamoa, I'm positive you do think that. You really do think that if I had left it alone, you somehow could have snuck out with a victory. I'm sure in that demented little brain of yours, you really do think that you could have saved the world that night through brute force alone. Because that's the kind of person you are, Mamoa. You see a wall and you try to bash your way through it. You think there's no obstacle big enough for you to overcome. You think that on your own you could take on the entire world. But that's simply not true, is it? Hell, there's one obstacle that you've never been able to overcome, right? One person that you've never been able to pin to this mat, and he's standing in this ring right now. He's the so-called normal human that you talked about last week, Scottye Moore. You see, Mamoa, one of these days you're gonna have to face facts. You're gonna have to face the fact that at WrestlePalooza, the only way that you are going to walk out of there alive, the only way that this world was going to be saved was with Scottye Moore doing the right thing. And that's kicking your ass and pinning you to the mat. You're going to have to face the fact that you should be grateful to me for what I did. You're going to have to face the fact that you might be the god of the JWF, but I am its salvation. I am its savior, and you are nothing but a... Oh, Tibbs, I'd run if I were Scottye Moore. That is the music of Mamoa Curry, the former champion, coming out to the ring, and he looks absolutely pissed, Tibbs.
I wouldn't take that if I was Mamoa Curry. I wouldn't take that sitting down. He's coming out, and he's gonna show Scottye Moore what he can do.
That's right, and he rushes Scottye Moore, leveling him with a Momoan punch. I thought this was just about to be, a promo battle, both of them talking back and forth, but this seems like a different Mamoa Curry. He doesn't want to worry about talking. He wants to worry about beating down Scottye Moore, and you can see it as he just continues laying in those shots to the face of the champion, and Scottye Moore is scrambling to get to the outside of the ring, Tibbs.
Holy shit, I wasn't expecting this level of ferocity from Mamoa Curry, but it's a welcome sight.
That's right, and Mamoa Curry standing proudly in the ring, staring down Scottye Moore, who is escaping through our crowd, holding his JWF championship close. And Tibbs, I'll be honest, if I had to give Scottye Moore a little bit of advice, I would say hold that title close, because when Mamoa Curry comes for it, I don't think that he's going to be keeping it for long.
I don't know, so Scottye Moore, he's got a long history with Mamoa Curry, and he's got a lot to live up to now that he's got that championship. But Mamoa Curry is more fired up than ever.
That is right, Tibbs. And speaking of some men who I know are fired up, I want to talk about our brand new JWF Tag Team Champions, the team of Jeramis and the War Wizard. They are, of course, known as the War Wizards, and at WrestlePalooza, in their debut match here in the JWF, they managed to grab those JWF Tag Team Championships from the top of a ladder, hold them high, and Tibbs, I know they made the entire JXT developmental team proud when they were able to defeat three of the biggest tag teams we had to offer.
Absolutely, Sills. I'm amazed at the tenacity of the War Wizards coming out in their first match and achieving such a victory.
That's right, Tibbs, but of course the War Wizards might have an opportunity to become dual champions, because of course, in addition to their opponents coming up at our next pay-per-view, the Wild-Eyed Southern Boys putting Sam Adams in the Best of the Best tournament. You've also given the War Wizards the opportunity to put someone in that tournament, and I think we need to figure out who it's going to be. So why don't we go backstage right now with one of our top interviewers for an exclusive interview with the War Wizards. Let's have a listen.
Hello everybody, Honeypot Mick Precious Sunflower here, backstage with the newly crowned JWF Tag Team Champions, the War Wizards. Now boys, in addition to your amazing victory at WrestlePalooza, you have had the opportunity to soon become dual champions with your entry into Captain Tibbs' Best of the Best tournament. But the real question remains, who will the War Wizards pick for the tournament?
Ah, yes. Quite the curious conundrum we have here, Honeypot. In just a few weeks, we find ourselves facing off against Sam Adams of the Wild-Eyed Southern Boys, a man who is going to be bringing all of the vitriol and fury that he's felt since we've taken these tag titles away from him. A man who is one of the top names here in the JWF, a man who is dangerous. And as much as I, the mighty Jeremis, would love to get my hands on Sam Adams, I also understand that coming into this company and quickly taking all the titles for our own would be quite the quiver in our belt. So this is not about revenge, no, this is about tactics. This is about putting the greatest, the most powerful, the biggest beast I've ever seen, the War Wizard, into the match.
Yes, hello! Sam Adams. In just a few short weeks, I'll show you the error of your ways. You've been spending all of your time here in this company complaining, moaning, and crying about never getting what you deserve. Never getting the title shots, the main events, never being where you deserve to be. Well, in a few weeks, I will be giving you exactly what you deserve, and that, mister, is the ass-kicking of a lifetime! I will bring forth my wand of destiny and cast such powerful magics upon you that you'll never be able to recover! I'll show you exactly what happens, Sam Adams, when the wizard goes to war. Yeah!
Tibbs, is he allowed to use a wand in the ring?
You know, Sills, there's nothing in the rule book that says he can't.
Yeah, but you gotta assume that's gotta be like a foreign object, right? It's a wand, like...
As long as he doesn't hit him with it.
But what if he casts Fireball?
Not hitting him with the wand.
Fair, all right, well, fair point, Tibbs. Well, who knows what's gonna happen when those two face off in 2 weeks, against Sam Adams. Sam Adams, the War Wizard, is going to be an epic encounter to determine who goes to the semifinals of that end of the tournament. But in order to find out who goes to this end semifinals, we're going to have this match right now as Blake Tanner takes on the debuting Hollywood Hulcher, a man who's been in our developmental territory, JXT, for a very long time. And let me tell you something, if you talk about the biggest names at JXT, Hulcher's definitely going to be on that list, Tibbs.
Absolutely, Sills. I honestly never expected to see Hollywood Hulcher in any ring ever again. His surprise return against Blake Tanner is something that I was baffled, flabbergasted by even.
That's right. I mean, let's not forget the history of Blake Tanner and Hollywood Hulcher. It might seem like these two are just thrown together, that Hollywood was getting tired of Blake Tanner's actions, but no. I want to talk about the first ever JXT class, the first ever in our developmental territory, that people talked about the Fabulous Four, the best men to come out of that school, out of that class, and they were, of course, Scottye Moore, the Dylan, Blake Tanner, and Hollywood Hulcher. I mean, you want to talk about the Fight Boyz, one of the biggest names this company's ever seen, which was, of course, Blake Tanner, Scottye Moore, and the Dylan. There was a fourth man back in JXT, and that man was Hollywood Hulcher. But then once the JWF started to get up, we only called up 3 men, and Hollywood Hulcher was left by the wayside, and it absolutely decimated him, Tibbs.
Absolutely, Sills, to see the men that you'd been teaming with for so long, the men that you had honestly changed the face of JXT in their time there, which is what they did, to be left by the rest of them, almost unceremoniously. It must have been quite a blow to the ego.
That's right, and Hulcher disappeared for many years, going off, learning to pilot planes, going to Hollywood, trying to become big in the movies. But Hollywood Hulcher always knew what his destiny was. He always knew his destiny lay in a JWF ring. And so he came back came back to JXT, proved himself down there, winning the Highway to Hell tournament, having epic matches with the likes of Robert Hill, the Jebeduk. Hollywood Hulcher's done it all down there, and he finally decided to come here to prove why he deserved to be called up so many years ago, and this might be the beginning of that rise to the top, Tibbs.
He beat a big dead dog, man. It was really exciting.
Yes, it was a man that was don't say just he beat a big dog, Tibbs, because that, I don't like the optics on that at all.
It was undead.
Okay, close enough. Well, Tibbs, you can see Blake Tanner staring off, looking furious at Hollywood Hulcher, and there's the bell going ring. Blake rushing Hulcher for a big European uppercut, but Hulcher ducks at the last minute. Blake connecting with the turnbuckle, and Blake Tanner looks rocked, Tibbs. But wait a minute, Hulcher! Hulcher rolls up Tanner! Hulcher rolls up Tanner! 1, 2, 3! What the hell just happened, Tibbs?
What? Hollywood Hulcher's just beaten Blake Tanner in 10, 15 seconds flat.
That's right, Hollywood Hulcher rolling to the outside of the ring, and you can see Blake Tanner. Blake Tanner is furious. He doesn't know what the hell just happened, Tibbs.
I don't know, Sills. He got rocked pretty hard by that turnbuckle. I didn't think that it'd knock him so silly that he'd get pinned like that.
That's right. Now it looks like next week, to determine who's going on to the finals, the Dylan is going to be taking on Hollywood Hulcher. But at this point, I mean, do you think Blake Tanner might have been overestimating Hollywood Hulcher? I mean, there's got to be a bit of an ego increase when you get called up before somebody else. But at the end of the day, Hollywood Hulcher, he's proved himself in JXT, and I don't think Blake Tanner's been studying the tapes.
I'm not sure, Sills. In Blake Tanner's eyes, he may just still be the same Hulcher that was in JXT before he went to Hollywood, before he got this life experience and decided to come back to the ring.
That's right. You can see Blake Tanner at ringside. He is furious, Tibbs. He's got a steel chair just beating the hell out of the ring with that chair ripping off the mats. Blake Tanner's going crazy at ringside.
Hey, that's expensive.
Oh, God, and Blake just grabbing the ring bell, tossing it into the ring, grabbing the steel chairs. Blake Tanner's just ripping apart our ringside area, and at this point, I mean, I don't know what we can do.
We need to get security down here. Insurance won't cover this.
Well, security is coming down, restraining Blake Tanner. You can see he's trying to fight back, but I don't know how long it's going to last. They do have tasers, Tibbs.
Oh, I don't know, Sills. I don't want another wrestler in the hospital, but we might have to put him back there.
That's right, Tibbs. But of course, the real story coming out of this match was that epic victory from Hollywood Hulcher. That 13-second victory over Blake Tanner. That epic victory, which is, of course, leading to the match next week to determine who's going to the finals, who's going to be at the Resurrection pay-per-view in just a few short weeks to fight for the Captain's Championship. And it's, of course, going to be Hollywood Hulcher versus another man from his past, the man known as the Dylan.
Oh, Sills, this is gonna be good to watch all these former Fight Boys fighting each other.
That's right, Tibbs. And in addition to that, we're going to hear a response from the Wild-Eyed Southern Boys in response to hearing that the War Wizard is going to be facing Sam Adams in just a few short weeks. And also, we're going to have an exclusive sit-down interview with our former champion, Mamoa Curry. And he's going to give a little bit more backstory between him, Scottye Moore, and why he is so furious for Scottye Moore's actions at WrestlePalooza.
I'm looking forward to it, Sills. We got a great month planned out ahead of us.
That's right, Tibbs. But of course, until then, make sure to support the show on Patreon. Patreon.com/loadofbs is the website where you can support the JWF and the entire BS network. And who knows, we might even like you. We might bring you into JXT and work as one of our developmental wrestlers. Let me tell you something. We've had a few guys come through there. Scott Moore, Ghazi. Top names go in to the JXT, and they sometimes even debut here on the main roster.
Exactly, so sometimes you can just bypass the whole damn thing.
And in addition to that, make sure to pick up your merchandise for all your favorite JWF superstars online at merch.loadofpurebs.com. Click on the Fight Boys section. Go down to where it says JWF Wrestling. You'll find shirts for the Fight Boys. You'll find shirts for the Jebeduk. For all your favorites, they're available over at merch.loadofpurebs.com, Tibbs.
Yeah.
And of course, until next week, remember, he's been Captain Tibbs, I've been Silver Spoon. This has been JWF Monday Night Ignition, and we will see you next time.